Hi everyone, I am Said Saul Herrera Gonzalez, and this is my video for the class Regional Markets. So, in this video, I'm going to talk about the common market for Eastern and Southern Africa, which is a regional market from Africa. In this video, I will explain some of the context of this institution, some of the history, how was this was created, the member states of this union, and also I will talk about the objectives and the vision that this institution had to help Africa to, as Trump will say, to make Africa great again. Um, yeah, I will explain or I will talk about some of the member states, the importance of this market, of this common market among the African continent. And finally, the main object of this video is to take one country and analyze the situation, how the COMESA has affected at the um, that member state. How is the situation currently in the economical, the political, and the social aspects? How being part of a common market such as this helps to develop or to improve many situations that are totally, totally left behind. So let's start with it, and I hope you enjoy it. Well, well, we have to understand first what a regional market is. And to make a long story short, let's say that a regional market is a specific geographical area or an economic block where the goods, services, and capital are exchanged within the countries that are part of that regional market. That means that, for example, the European Union is an example of this. The European Union and the countries that are part of this can share the goods and services with lower prices than the ones that are outside the European Union. For example, if Spain sells olive oil, they should or they must reduce their prices for the European Union, but outside the European Union, that means Africa, America, Asia, they can sell it with higher prices. So they have preferences among them. Also, they reduce the um, the obligations or the restrictions to travel from one country to another. That means if I live in France, I can easily fly to Italy with minimal restrictions. Also, as a part of the European Union, they must help each other. That means that if Spain has a crisis with food or with social problems, the other countries should help Spain to resolve those problems. So these regional markets help also to develop the local markets. That means the markets, for example, of Spain are stronger or achieve to develop itself with the help of the European Union. So in that's an overview of what a regional market is. So in the case of the continent of Africa and the African Union, we can name 8 recognized regional economic communities, which are the AMU or UMA, which stands for Arab Maghreb Union, the SAD, which is the Community of Sahel Saharan States, the EAC, East African Community, ECAS, Economic Community of Central African States, ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States, the IGAD, Intergovernmental Authority of Development, and the SADC, Southern African Development Community. And the last one, which is the one I will talk about in this video, is the COMESA, Common Market of Eastern and Southern Africa, as I said in the introduction of this video. The history or the creation of the COMESA is recent relatively because it was established in December of 1994. This union was created to replace one that it was called the Preferential Trade Area or PTA, which had existed before the days of 1981. So the COMESA replaced this PTA, and also it was developed by um, states that by sovereign states that wanted to develop their human and the natural resources for the goods of all the people that lived in those countries. The focus of the COMESA is in the creation of a large economical and trading unit that is capable to overcoming some of the barriers that are faced by individual states. By doing this union, they manage or they are intended to create economic prosperity through the regional integration. And I have to say that the COMESA is one of the most, if not the one most important economical union in Africa, with 21 member states and a population of over 640 million of gross and a gross domestic product of 1.01 trillion and a global export and import trading goods worth of 383 billion dollars. COMESA forms a major marketplace for both international and external trading. Aside being the larger economic union of Africa, is I think the bigger because it is almost two-thirds of the African continent with an area of 1 million kilometers. So it's a big part of the continent or the countries that are part of this union or are most of the countries that are in that area. Within the COMESA, there are certain offers that these institutions offer to the member states, and there are six principal benefits, which are a wider, harmonized, and more competitive market, a greater industrial productivity and competitiveness, increased agricultural production and food security, a more rational exploitation of natural resources, more harmonized monetary, banking, and financial policies, and more reliable transport and communications structure. So these 6 points are the main offerings, the main benefits that the member states have by being part of this union. The COMESA also has three different priority areas, which are a free trade area, customs unions, and trade promotion. The first one, free trade area, was achieved on 31st October of 2000, when nine of the member states, which were Djibouti, Kenya, Madagascar, Malawi, Mauritius, Sudan, Zambia, and Zimbabwe, that eliminated the tariffs on COMESA originating products. Before this, 8 years ago, it was created a tariff reduction schedule, but it was in only in the 2000 that these nine countries agreed to eliminate the tariffs that it was already um, taking into action. But before 1992, sorry, it was created a trade liberalization program that commenced in 1984 on reduction and eventual elimination of tariff and non-tariff barriers to intra-regional trade. That means that between the creation of this trade liberalization program in 1984 until the actual action of this trade of this program, there were there were 16 years between those moments. So it was a process that it took uh, not that long, but not that short. So it's it's a low and steady um, process. The second, customs unions. The second, the custom union, it's when two or more custom territories form a single custom territory in which the custom duties and other measures that restrict trade are eliminated for substantially all trade between the merged territories. That means that if I join, for example, Mexico with Guatemala in a custom union, the trade barriers that exist between those countries disappear and they act like an only custom union. They also have the advantage that with third parties they can use their own custom laws with that third party. So if a country wants to trade with Mexico, Mexico can act or can apply their own custom laws with that country. And if another country that is not um, fusioned with these two countries, they can, yeah, they each country can use their own um, trade laws with the parties that are not part of this fusion. Finally, we have the trade promotion, which the objectives of this are four. The first is the trade liberalization in customs cooperation, including the introduction of a unified computerized custom network across the region, improving the administration of transport and communications to aid the movement of goods, services, and people between the countries, creating an enabling environment and legal framework which will encourage the growth of the private sector to the establishment of a secure investment environment and the adoption of common sets of standards. And four, the harmonization of macroeconomic and monetary policies through the region. So these are the most important objectives for the COMESA to develop the trade between and outside the countries that are part of this union. Now we have the values. COMESA has four core values that are very appreciated in the institution and also are very present among the 21 member states that are part of it. The first one is that they believe in satisfying their customers. The second is that they take pride in their reputation for delivering services with professionalism, integrity, and innovation. The third one is that they believe in equality, leadership, teamwork, and respect for each other in an enabling environment. And finally, the fourth is that their people care for their environment and uphold its social responsibility. These four values are encouraged to be or to make not only a good work environment but also socially, and the environment are part of these values because they are aware of what the colonization made to their land. They are very conscious of what they need to be that area where rich of full of resources, but they also know that they must work on the social struggles that they are passing through. They are very conscious about the necessities of the population. So I think that's why I thought I choose the African area to talk about, but principally COMESA because it's one of the most important economical union in the African country, continent. Sorry. I was forced to change my location, but I'm still here. So while the classes were on, the class, all the whole class, we found out that many of the regional markets or the economical blocks or the economical unions were very, very, very strong influenced by the European Union because this was the first or the one that were the most important in the recent years. And around the world, the the economic blocks and the regional markets were deeply influenced by this union, especially in Africa, because as we know, Africa was for many centuries under the control of the European countries. And that being in that way, Africa took many of the customs and the traditions and the way of making trade the from Europe. And it is interesting because if you look in the official page of COMESA, you find out that the principal partners are the World Bank, the USAID, the African Development Fund, and the Bank African Development. This is particularly interesting because it's written in France. But the most important here is that one of the main partner is precisely the European Union. And you can see with this that many of the ideas, the concepts, or the way in which the goods and services are distributed are deeply, deeply, deeply influenced by the European Union. And it's interesting but sad because it's supposed that many of the countries that were under the control of Europe were now independent states. But yeah, that was achieved in the recent decades, and many of the things that the Europeans did in that time are now part of the African culture. So maybe in the following years, maybe in the following decades, Africa will find a way to do the things in their own way, not influenced by anyone, just their own way. So that's it for the first part.